they are usually working with service-based margin opportunities. So they're looking at their labor, their people that are actually doing the work are going to be the higher cost as compared to the product that they're offering. So maybe they're doing some type of maintenance or some type of cleaning service. There's franchises that might have a cleaning service that will send out the cleaning staff to those locations, to the customer's locations. And so in those cases, your expenses are going to be mostly in that the labor pool. So for most people who really aren't the big investor types with, active management teams yet, what I want you to understand is that you have the ability to do better with less than what the management teams even have. But it means that you have to apply yourself more. So I'll talk about that more in just a minute, but you really have a lot of control over the results of your business and the mechanics of your business when you pick and select the right business up front first. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what home-based franchises, what they tend to offer. So these home-based franchises, they know their franchise owners really well. They know their weaknesses, they know their strengths, and oftentimes, whenever people are getting into a franchise, they want to know, how am I going to get customers into the door? And so the franchise systems, they have done a really good job of making sure they have recruitment systems to recruit customers and clients to that business. So the franchise might have things like call centers or really robust lead marketing systems. They might have training programs that help the salespeople on the franchisee's team to do a really good job early on in the process. And so in most cases, the franchises, they have a really good, robust process for acquiring and generating leads. And you want to make sure you ask that if you're going through the due diligence with them, because it's a really cool thing to learn about. And it's something that will help you to have good insights about the success of your business. All right. So, another thing I want to add is that in those service-based, home-based businesses, oftentimes you're not talking about a super complex sale. It's not like you're doing high-tech sales and you require all of this technical knowledge to be able to get the transaction done and having these teams of salespeople that are able to sell the product. A lot of times they're really more customer oriented. They're more relationship style sales. And so your team, you can have more friendly, organized people instead of the traditional salesperson type of, higher sophisticated skill level that might be required in other types of industries. Another kind of difference with home-based businesses versus retail is that with a home-based business, you tend to do more effort in marketing and advertising. So you spend a little bit more on the marketing and advertising typically. So where you're not spending on the product, you would maybe add a little bit more to get those lead generation mechanisms in place. And the thing with franchising is that you have a budget, and that budget, they work that budget with you and they help you to figure out what it should be early in the process so that you can stay on track in that first 1 to 2 years and then ongoing with the business. That's another thing to check. Does the franchisor help you with setting up and defining that budget? There's other forms of advertising too that local franchise owners can do to get kind of creative with the fact that they don't have a brick and mortar with a sign. Instead, they have more mobile signs where you might have a vehicle that's wrapped, and then that vehicle drives around town and is your walking or your driving billboard that people can see and jot down those numbers and give you a call. All right, so one of the other things I do want to mention too about a home-based business is that with a retail business, when you're trying to expand that retail business, you often have to invest in another location with the whole separate build out and a whole separate team and so on. With a home-based business, you don't have to do that duplication. Oftentimes, you can simply add more opportunity and production by just increasing the territory size as opposed to building out these separate locations. So it's more of a geographic span as opposed to the work needed to require that build out and getting it going. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is the concept of less plus less equals more. So when you have a home-based business, there is generally less to do whenever you're launching that business. And so you're taking some of the most big, cumbersome, time-consuming, and complicated aspects of the business launch, such as the build-out, and you're reducing that or taking it away completely. And so that does make it a lot simpler to get things going and start a business. So some of the things that we have dealt with in launching franchise locations with a retail location is in one situation, we got a bad lease and that lease had bad terms. So it was very difficult to work with our legal team to go through and renegotiate that. Once you're in, they don't want to change things. So those things can be harder. So you have to manage that lease component whenever you have a physical location. And it's not to say that that can't be done. It can be done. You need to be careful about how you do it. And you want to make sure that you're working with an attorney in that process. There's also landlords that are great landlords, except for they won't allow you to do the things that help you to get business into that location. So one of the things that we had when we were running our franchises is that they wouldn't let us use wiggly men or balloons or sign flippers outside to help us get attention for different events that we were running or for the people that were having that drive-by traffic. And so the problem with that is that most of our customers would come in and they would say, I didn't know you guys were here. And so you get into a retail business thinking that you're going to get all this drive-by traffic. And I know for me, I was actually really surprised at how many people were consistently saying that they didn't know that we were here. And it was a phenomena that was not just one location. It was location after 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 location. People were always saying that they didn't know that we were there. And the sign was there. We were on busy streets. We had all indications that people would normally think of that would tell you that we were there as a business. And so just because there's drive-by traffic, people are distracted and in their heads and, thinking, doing different things. And so they're not always present in those driving moments. And they miss the businesses and retailers that are all around them. I mean, even I do that. You do that. I mean, everybody does that. And so I think it can be a misconception when people are going through the process of identifying if they want a retail business or a home base, they might think they're going to get more traffic than what occurs through just regular drive-by. So if they don't have a physical location that allows for those kind of more extroverted ways of getting attention to the store, it can be more reliant on the traditional marketing, just like with a home-based business. And so you're just kind of skipping some steps there with the home-based. All right. In addition to that, when you have the other part of the less is that because you don't have the physical location with a home base, you're not buying furniture, fixtures, and equipment, which is also called FF&E. You're not having to buy the stock of the store and making sure that you have those products on the shelves, that it's inventoried, that it's in the back, that you have a system for security for it. You're not having to do all of that. You have less supplies to buy for your employees. There's a lot of things that you have maybe in the truck or in the warehouse or something that you would manage there, but it's just a bit easier to manage all of that as compared to other types of retail businesses. So less plus less equals more. How does that happen? Well, when you have more, I'm talking about more, when you don't have as many expenses, you have more capital for your ramp up and more rope to be able to have and build a sustainable business. You have more time to ramp up that business, and you have the ability to get more training and support and really develop the healthy business practices and habits that allow you to create success with it. When you're focusing on the core business functions instead of all the other logistics of the build out and administration setup, you just kind of jump right into those core actions and get it going. So it allows you to move faster because you're not focusing on all those non-business functions that are required to launch in a brick and mortar. And then just a little side bonus is that you do also have more freedom with a home-based business, because when you have a retail location, you have to be at the store, you have to open it, you have to close it, and that can be restrictive depending on what you want for your life. That can be challenging and who you employ. So it just makes it a little bit easier to work around your schedule. So I've told you a lot of benefits now, but I do want to also tell you some of the risks, because I do believe in being highly transparent. And so if we look at some of the data from our lender resources, we do find that lower cost businesses do tend to have a higher rate of failure. But the reasons why they are failing are not what you think. It's actually surprising, but then not as surprising too. It's kind of a weird dynamic, but the business is not harder. So it's not that the business is harder. You have less to manage, less overhead. There's less cost. So it's not the cost. It's not that it's not a good business, because we've done the checking and vetting on the franchise. You've gone through that process. The higher failure rate is actually because there is a lower commitment from the owner. So this is what the lenders told us, is that it's easier to give up whenever you're less invested, and it's harder to give up whenever you're more invested. So if you think about a comparison, let's say you're comparing romantic relationships with business ownership. In a romantic relationship, if you're dating someone, that's a different level of commitment than if you're married to someone and you have kids with them and a house and you have a church community and in-laws who love your spouse. That one has a lot more commitment and stickiness to it. So it's got more that keeps them in place. Whereas with a home-based business or dating, you don't have as many. You have a lot more flexibility. It's a lot easier to say, oh, well, maybe I just don't really want to do this. Let's move on. So here's kind of the secret with that, is that if you're a business owner and you choose the level of commitment that you put into that business, so you could, as a business owner, simply choose to have the advantage of the lower cost, the advantage of the lower upfront, and the higher success rate by just simply committing to it. And that part is the part that I think it's a lot easier to do than people think, because it's just making the decision that you're not going to give up. It's just like the answer to giving up is no. It's like, no, that's not an option. Failure is not an option is actually one of my favorite quotes. I love that quote, especially when I was early in my career and starting businesses. It was just like, failure is not an option, so let's figure it out. And then you do. It's like the answer and the way is shown and it becomes available to you. But you have to commit to that instead of thinking, oh, well, maybe I don't really have to do this. Like that part that tries to drag you down is what trips you up and creates a harder experience, and you actually are stronger than that. So my encouragement to you is to choose to commit, but go in and look at the options that are lower risk, less cost up front, and just see, are there any that make sense for you? And are you the type of person that could commit? Are you determined enough? Could you make that promise to yourself, that marriage to yourself, but with the lower upfront cost? All right, so one other bonus is that a lot of home-based businesses actually have recurring accounts. And if you know me, you know that I love recurring business models because I have experienced the different franchises. And the ones that I have with recurring income, like monthly recurring income that was paid either on a contract or recurring membership dues, those were just easier to run all around than those that were more transactional. And so they just allowed for a lot more free time and space to roam around and do the things that I wanted to do. All right, so the 3 things that you need to be successful as a home-based business owner are to, 1, you always have to focus on getting sales and revenue into that business. So if you're focused on anything else, that's the wrong focus. Right now is getting sales and revenue into that business as you launch and get it going. And then the second thing is to spend less than you earn. So you actually want to make sure that you're really good at controlling your cost and your income in. So those 2 things, if you do nothing else, if you just make sure that the revenue is higher than the expenses, then you will make money because that's how money is made. And the other thing that I would suggest for any home-based business is to put a revenue line item on there that is your profit. So select your profit line, put it on there, and pay it just like you would pay a mortgage. It's a commitment every single month. This is part of your bills, and you put that money, the profit, into your profit account. And then I would just say, make sure that you commit to win, don't give up, and you can get really good results from it. What to look for in a home-based franchise. So when you're looking at and assessing the franchise, you do want to look for the management of the team. What kind of support do they give? You want to look at the oversight systems that they have. How well are they helping you to manage employees if they're not coming to a physical location that you can secure in certain ways, that you can kind of watch a video camera to see what's going on and just verify and check them. So you want to see what kind of systems do they have to check the results of your employees and customer tracking. You also want to check their advertising, like I mentioned, and then make sure that they have a good culture that is one that you align with. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn us over to Adrienne at this time so that she can take you through the franchises and we can get started on that. So, Adrienne?
Reducing costs. But that doesn't necessarily extend to things like merchant services and telecom and shipping and waste and electronic logging devices. And there's a whole host of other things, fuel, that they help companies in their price reduction, because those are usually things that maybe they send out a request for proposal once a year, they try and do their best, but they don't have the same access to the kind of enormous database of information that Scully Mitchell does in reducing the cost. Most of the time, the cost reductions come not from changing vendors, but from negotiating better deals based on their knowledge of the marketplace and what's actually doable. This also is a business where you can become very entwined with other franchisees, because franchisees frequently work together in order to do the cost reduction deals. But the reduction of money spent by these large corporations is then split 50% to the client. So they're getting the benefit of the cost savings themselves, obviously, and 50% to the franchisee over the next 3 years. And one of the kind of secret sauces that Scully Mitchell has is how they track that. Because if you take shipping as an example, if you have I'll give you an example, a law firm that reduces its expenses by simply changing the time of their delivery pickup, and they might have had a $200,000 shipping expense. Law firms have big expenses in that regard. Reduce that to $150,000 annually, that would mean that the franchisee gets $25,000, the company saves $25,000. But tracking that, as you can imagine, would be a challenge, because it's the difference between the two due to a difference in the number of items shipped, or is it really due to cost reduction? And that's where Scully Mitchell is brilliant at being able to capture that information. Their sweet spot is working with small to medium clients, anywhere from 5 to 1,000 employees, but you can work with larger corporations as well. And they offer optional marketing services where they will develop the leads for you and guarantee you qualified appointments with the people who are the decision makers. So on the one hand, this is a very sales-oriented business. You are on the phone a lot, particularly in the beginning, getting the connections with these head offices and getting in the door. Once you do get in the door, frequently companies do over 3 different sectors for cost reduction. So they might do merchant services and waste and fuel or software, something along those lines. So it can really generate some very nice returns. They have fantastic support, and for someone who is sales oriented and who likes being with those C-suite kind of people, it's a great low cost, as you can see, $70,500 to $80,750 investment. And our next franchise is Stable Storefronts. And I say franchise, and I'm actually kind of misspeaking. This is a business opportunity. It's also really a unicorn. I have said for years, people have called me frequently and said, I want to invest only $50,000 and I don't want to work at all, but I want the business to generate money for me. That's typically what you think of out of the stock market, but that's actually what Stable Storefronts does. It's an e-commerce opportunity where they develop your Amazon and or Walmart store. And you can do one or both or either one. But they help you set up these stores. They make sure that all the hoops are jumped through properly, and then they manage the stores for you. So it truly does create passive income, since they're running the stores for you. So you're not handling any product, you're not handling any returns, you're not handling any customer complaints. Stable Storefronts does all of that. You also are not choosing what products are being sold, because they have the access to the information that tells them what products are being bought. They're not looking for high ticket items, they're looking for items that have a high return. The difference between how much you can buy them for and how much you can sell them for. They have over 14,000 different products, different SKUs that they can choose from. And they like simple products like kids' games and spices and protein bars. One of the people I talked to said, one of the first products in my store was gluten-free salad dressing. I don't care about this stuff, but it seems to be working on the sales. So you really don't have to have a high price product, and they do stay away from things that have high returns or high problems with them, like electronics and clothing. But they can walk you through their financial model, very detailed, because they're not a franchise. So they can actually spell things out in a little bit more detail in a different way. They also offer what they call their bulletproof guarantee, which is that you get all of your initial investment back after your initial investment has run through the entire program. So, as an example, if you were investing in $25,000 of inventory, you're not going to put that all into month one because it takes a while for that to be the product to come in and be sold and collected from Amazon. So you might only be investing $2,000 a month in order to get that $25,000 through the program. But the idea is that at the end of running that 25,000 through, you should have 25,000 back in your pocket plus 25,000 of inventory on the shelf. Or they said they'll write you a check for the difference, but they said they have never had to pay that. So very interesting model. If you are starting with that, the total investment is between 50,000 and 100, and that's really mostly being invested in inventory. The amount that you pay to them for the training program is 25,000. The rest goes into inventory over the course of time. But it's a very interesting model. And as I said, it really is a unicorn. So let's move on to the next one. And our next one is Challenge Island. And Challenge Island is a fun business. This is a great kids-oriented business, very low cost, basically mobile business. They give incredibly large territories. And they have a one-of-a-kind curriculum for kids ages 4 to 14 with innovative STEAM-focused learning. And STEAM, if you're not aware, is, oh gosh, now I'm going to draw a blank. Science, STEM. Good Lord, I'm drawing a blank. Well, hopefully you all know what STEM is, and the STEAM throws in art. Math, the M is math. My apologies, but it's a very comprehensive and varied curriculum. And the nice thing about it is, unlike most tutoring programs where you've got a limited number of seats in a classroom kind of setting, there's no limit to the number of kids that can be served simultaneously. And they have over a 60% repeat clientele. So this is for after school programs, it's for classes, parties, scouting. They do family challenge nights, they do workshops in assisted living, and they're also now doing corporate team building. They've got established national partnerships with Girl Scouts, Boys and Girls Clubs, and a host of others as well. But it's a really exciting program where kids have the opportunity in a group setting to compete against each other and learn, but it makes it fun because it is more like a competition. The whole franchise came about when the founder was working in her own second grade classroom. She loved the show Survivor, if you all remember that. And so she developed a program to have kids compete in doing things on these different islands, where each island has a different challenge. So in one, if it's based on Egypt as an example, the math might be calculating the sides of the pyramid and how to construct it. There's also the technology aspect for that. There's the art of doing the hieroglyphics, but it goes through each challenge, incorporates each aspect of the STEAM curriculum. And they do have a very well developed system, well over 100 franchisees, and very low cost for 58,000 to 74,000. The nice thing about this is that there's really not the kind of sales involved the way we saw, for example, with Schoolie Mitchell. This is developing relationships with schools, and then the schools are the ones that are really marketing to the parents and having the kids come to these programs. So it's a different kind of sales approach. You are certainly talking to schools and boys and girls clubs and things like that in the beginning, and once those relationships are established, the kids keep rolling in on the enrollments. So there's different models, which is another important thing to look at as you are investigating franchises, is really what your role is, particularly as it regards to sales. You know, Schooley Mitchell, you want to be very sales oriented in a B2B type of model. With this, you're really just going out and developing relationships and asking if people would be interested. Very different model. And we'll talk about some of the different sales models as we go along. So if we move on to our next one, we have Senior Care Authority. And Senior Care Authority is a great way to be involved in the senior market without being in the very complicated and labor intensive home health model. So, what Senior Care Authority does is they help place people in appropriate senior care, assisted living, dementia care kind of facilities. And they help them find those facilities that are going to be the best fit for them, kind of in the same way that we as franchise consultants help you find the best franchise for you. But this can be a very high margin business. Again, definitely a work from home business. The first thing that you do, and Senior Care Authority helps you with this, is they help to get you positioned as kind of an expert in the area of senior care in your market. You then want to develop relationships with people that are going to know when people are in need of senior care facilities. So it could be skilled nursing discharge, it could be hospital discharge, it could be geriatric doctors, it could be clergy. There's a whole host of contacts that they help you develop in your market. And once you've developed that, the next thing you also want to be doing is actually learning about the facilities in your area so that you can make those appropriate matches. And Senior Care Authority, the franchisor, helps you to set up the relationships with them because the services are paid by the facility. They're not paid by the family. So it makes it a very low cost or no cost proposition for families. I was actually just talking to someone about this today who needs their services, as opposed to talking to them about that as becoming a franchisee, because there's such a huge need for people that when they have a life-changing event like sudden illness that leaves someone more debilitated and they can't go back to their own home, they don't necessarily know what facilities are available or what the differences are. And there's a wide range of costs and cultures and benefits that they have and the kind of services that they have. So having someone to help guide you through that is really, really helpful. And the market is just increasing every single day because about 70% of individuals over age 65 will require at least some kind of long-term care service during their lifetime, according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And by 2050, the number of Americans 65 and older is projected to be over 88 million. That's more than double its population that it was back in 2010. So it is really, really a growth market and a very needed service by people who need to be in one of these facilities when they really can't stay in their home any longer. A very strong culture that the franchisor has, very few employees, if any, needed. Frequently, you can start on your own and eventually hire someone as an administrative assistant. Can be great for husband-wife teams, and again, very low investment that you can see on the screen without my reading that out. So that covers Senior Care Authority, I think. Home Smiles is a really interesting one from the standpoint of being something really new, different, and very definitely an idea whose time has come. You know, you go to your doctor every year for a physical, you take your car in to get oil changes and a service, you get your teeth cleaned, but what do you do for your real estate? And until now, with Home Smiles, there really hasn't been a single source provider for property maintenance services. And Home Smiles is changing all of that, and they're growing very rapidly in the way that they're doing it. The backstory of this is kind of an interesting one, and I think it explains a little bit what the benefits are. The founder of the company was actually an attorney who owned a number of rental properties himself out in California. And being an attorney, he realized that he had a big liability issue from the standpoint of what if the batteries didn't get changed in a smoke alarm? What if the dryer vents didn't get cleaned out and there was a fire? What if, what if, what if? And there's a whole host of maintenance items that really can become hazards if they're not maintained appropriately. And so he created a system for his own properties to have all of those things addressed on a monthly or quarterly or annual basis as appropriate. And he got so much interest in it that he finally decided to franchise it. And Home Smiles was born. But they can go through in a 3 hour check and handle most of the maintenance issues at the level that they need handling for ongoing maintenance to limit homeowner liability. It also is great for seniors who can't necessarily get up on ladders and change those batteries in smoke alarms or change light bulbs or clean out gutters or things along those lines. It's partly residential, but this is also in a lot of ways primarily a business to business kind of service because there's a lot of homeowners associations and property management companies. You would think property management companies would have this all under control, but really they're managing things on an ongoing basis, like the maintenance and the rental and the background checks of tenants and things like that. Most of them don't have their own maintenance programs. So this is really a great business to help them out as well. And that B2B side of the business is really a great way to develop more rapidly because obviously if you get a property management company with 100 properties, that's easier than trying to sell 100 individual homeowners. Some of the franchisees like to work in their business and they're present in their vans and at the job sites and working alongside their crews. Most franchisees really start this working on their business. So they're present in their office, they're managing the teams, they're working on relationships, they're handling the sales, and they're recruiting and training new teams and then focusing on developing new territories and more growth. And it's also something that can become very semi-absentee over time. And I really want to emphasize over time. We wouldn't want to start this semi-absentee up front. But there's a lot of opportunity in this. I've mentioned the Homeowners Association. They also do a lot of work with government facilities like universities and junior colleges. Really, every single rooftop you see needs some kind of maintenance. So the opportunity is wide, wide open. And they have, I think, close to 20 items that they maintain the service for. So having a one-stop shop, you can imagine, is much easier for those businesses in particular, but also for homeowners to know that their house is being protected. And total investment is $148,000 to $201,000. And last but not least, we have Painter One. Painter One has really built a fantastic culture. They evolved out of people that came from another painting franchise, and they looked at all of the things they thought were great with that, got rid of all the things they thought were not so great with that, and created what they think is truly a better mousetrap. So it's a franchise by franchisees, essentially. And I know a lot of people look at paint and say, really, there's so many painters out there. One of the things that is interesting in the franchise world is that these fragmented markets can be a great place to develop really strong businesses because the mom and pop businesses are typically what you're thinking of when you say, oh, there's a lot of competition out there. But when a franchise comes in, they can beat the heck out of those independent mom and pops because the mom and pops just don't have the resources that the franchises do in marketing and technology and a whole host of other things. So when you look at the painting market, it really is a very fragmented industry and it makes it easy to stand out. And the residential repaint market, and this is repaint, they don't do new home construction. But the repaint market is huge and there is plenty of room for competition and for growth. They're still an independently owned company. They're not part of private equity. And, all the competitors in this field, because there are a number of franchises in this arena, in the painting arena also, um, they all have a lot of minor differences, but it's hard to differentiate them from the standpoint of customers. But from an owner's standpoint, Painter One does have a great culture. And one differentiator that they have is cost. Painter One is on the lower end due to their royalty structure. So it's the same experience for the customer, but it's a lower cost to the customer because they're charging lower royalties and still giving the same high level of service. And for Painter One, it's really all about empowering the owners, and that's really their unique legacy. Um, they have very large territories, much larger than some of their competitors. Also, they have a custom software package. It's not something off the shelf that was tweaked to fit them. And that it's a very powerful software tool for quoting and reporting and reputation management and a whole unique automated service process. So, can certainly be home based to start. It might make sense to move into a small office, they say, as you hit the $1 million mark, but typically these are home based businesses. Um, Sales in this is very much a warm call. So, just to make one differentiation on sales, home services can be great businesses where the franchisor does the marketing. They may even have a call center that answers your phones. They schedule those appointments on your calendar, and you're not going out until you're going out and talking to someone who says, I'm interested, tell me more, which is almost like having someone come into your own retail location. So, very fun brand with the group of owners that they have, and a low investment here as well. And Sabrina, with that, I'll turn it back over to you to wrap us up.
Thank you so much, Adrienne. So I do just mention that franchising is a very custom experience. And most people start out thinking they want something, and almost 100% of the time don't end up with that particular thing, but something very different. And that's just because the franchising marketplace has so many variables that we look at to identify what is the brand that actually matches what you're looking for and what your goals are as a business owner. And so that those variables play into this. And so a good brand for one person is not a good brand for another person, but there's a lot of options out there. There's thousands of franchises. And so we help you to kind of sort through and find the ones that are most appropriate and a match for you. So there's many, many different franchises in many categories, and you can see a list right there of those categories. I do also want to just say that this is just a financial disclaimer. When you're going through the process of researching a franchise, the franchise gives you a franchise disclosure document, and that disclosure document has the financial information in it that you would actually use to compare and analyze that franchise. So at that step of the process, which is usually about the second franchisor call, you'll receive that disclosure document, and that's the information you want to look at and then verify throughout the process that you go through. And then I do just want to also welcome everyone to the next steps. So if you are interested in learning about franchises, if you're interested in just asking questions about business ownership and how to get yourself ready to be a business owner in this space, we are here to help you. We have an email on the screen, here to help at franchiseba.com. You can also reach out to us at the phone number 1-800-349-2985. And we are here to help you find, vet, fund, and then own a good franchise for you. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. I appreciate your time, your attention, your care, and I'm rooting for you. So whatever you choose to go to do and to become as a business owner or otherwise, we are just hopeful that it's the best opportunity and decision for you. I want to thank